Clooney Testifies. Senator in Epstein, file arrested. Bondi reveals shocking secrets of Vault 7. The courtroom was ice cold, not from the air conditioning, from the silence. Everyone was waiting. The judge, the reporters, the bailiff standing like a statue. Then she entered, Pam Bondi, former Florida Attorney General. No briefcase, no entourage. Just a thick crimson folder tucked under her arm. She didn't speak. She didn't smile. She walked straight to the witness stand. History had just walked in. Behind her sat Dan Bongino, calm, watchful. Former Secret Service, now her closest ally. He didn't blink, didn't flinch. Across the aisle, Sean Diddy Combs adjusted his collar. No sunglasses today, just tension, cold sweat. This wasn't a concert, this was a court. Judge Mallory banged her gavel. Court is now in session. The charges were read RICO, human trafficking, obstruction, coercion. Then, like a ghost, the name echoed Epstein. Though long dead, he haunted every word. Files had surfaced, suppressed for years, and this trial, Diddy's trial, wasn't just about one man. It was about a network, a system, a rot that stretched higher than anyone dared say aloud. "Ms. Bondi, please approach." She stood. I walked. Laid the red folder down on the witness desk. Her voice cut the silence. What I'm about to share was never meant to see daylight. Gasps. Inside the folder, documents, logs, emails, photos, seized hard drives, some from the 2019 raid on Epstein's Little St. James Island, others from 2023 raids on Diddy's homes. The prosecutor, sharp-eyed and steady, asked, "Ms. Bondi, can you confirm the origin of these materials?" Pam nodded. All classified, all recovered, all buried, some redacted, some destroyed. The judge leaned forward. Why now? Why bring this forward? Pam looked straight ahead. Because the silence has a body count. The gallery went still. She opened the folder. Names, dates, private jet manifests. Photos from hidden cameras, time-stamped, geotagged, verified. One video, blurry, but damning. A private villa, music, laughter, then a shift, doors closing. Diddy enters a private suite. Another man follows. The clip ends. The man a sitting U.S. senator. The crowd inhaled. Diddy shifted in his chair. Pam turned the page. There's more. She wasn't bluffing. The judge called a recess. Diddy's attorney stood. "Your Honor, we object." "Sit down," Mallory snapped. "This is not a press event." When the room cleared, Pam remained. Dan leaned in. "You sure about Clooney?" Pam nodded. "He's next." The doors opened. George Clooney entered. Not the red carpet version. This was a man undone. A man who'd seen too much and carried it too long. He sat. Took the oath. Looked out over the courtroom. "I'm here because the lies have weight, and I've carried mine long enough." Gasps again. "You attended gatherings hosted by Mr. Combs, Dorr?" the prosecutor asked. "Yes. Over many years." "Did you witness criminal activity?" Silence. Then, there were things. Moments I didn't want to believe. Young faces, familiar names. "Which names?" Clooney hesitated. Then, Senator Tom Tillis, Senator Mitch McConnell, Senator Lindsey Graham. The room exploded. Even Diddy turned to his lawyer, whispering furiously. The judge slammed the gavel. Pam sat still, silent. "Mr. Clooney," the prosecutor pressed. "Did they know what was happening?" His voice broke. "They didn't leave." Pam Bondi opened her folder again. Inside, screenshots of encrypted emails, schedules, photos. Diddy bragged about leverage, insurance, files, safes, hidden servers. The gallery whispered. Reporters scrambled for their phones. "We have a USB," the prosecutor announced, "recovered during the Los Angeles raid. It contains footage from Diddy's private server." Permission was granted. The video played. A polished estate. Night. Diddy. Two masked men. A young woman ushered into the room, then darkness. The judge cut the feed. "We will reconvene tomorrow," she said. "This session is adjourned." Outside, protesters surged. Signs, chants, demands. Inside, Pam Bondi handed Dan a handwritten list. 10 names, 10 men, 10 matches. "This isn't about one celebrity," she said. Dan scanned the list. "This is a political detonation." Pam nodded. "And we just lit the fuse." The courtroom returned from recess with an eerie silence, as though the walls themselves were processing what had just happened. But now it was Pam Bondi's moment. The Florida firebrand stood confidently as she re-entered the witness stand. She wasn't holding the red folder this time. It had already been submitted into sealed evidence, but her voice would carry its weight. Dan Bongino, stoic and vigilant, remained seated close by. No words were exchanged, but his eyes followed every twitch in the room. Across the aisle, Diddy sat hollow-eyed but listening. He wasn't trying to smile anymore. He knew this was bigger than him now. The prosecutor stepped forward. Her tone was calm but charged. "Ms. Bondi, yesterday you revealed that the red folder contained files from the 2019 Epstein raid and the 2023 Combs seizures. Can you elaborate on what tied these together?" Pam nodded. The digital forensics showed overlapping agents' synchronized timestamps and mirror backups routed to a private server under an entity named Greystone. "And Greystone is..." Pam looked straight at the judge. "An off-the-books intelligence contractor. They don't just clean up, they erase." Gasps rippled again. This wasn't a theory. She had the logs, the data. "We found cross-referenced attendance logs at Epstein properties and Diddy-owned mansions. Same names, same network." The prosecutor placed an image on the screen. A diagram circles and arrows names and dates. At the center, the word Black Room. "Ms. Bondi, what is the Black Room?" "It's where leverage becomes law. Photos, video signatures, everything you can use to control a senator, a judge, a foreign diplomat. That's where it's stored, hidden." Kimmel, seated among the reporters, scribbled furiously. The networks had all cut into regular programming. Everyone was watching. "Did Mr. Combs have access to this room?" Pam hesitated. "He helped build it." Even Diddy flinched. "Explain," the prosecutor urged. "He hosted the events. The cameras were embedded. The footage was coded, then exported to Greystone assets. What he didn't realize was that the same system he thought protected him also archived every move he made." The screen changed again, a blurred photo from a security camera. Private villa, a senator in the background, Diddy in the foreground, and a young woman barely visible, her face shielded. Pam's voice cracked just once. "Some of these girls were younger than my interns." The judge leaned forward. "Who gave Combs cover for all these years?" "Start with these names," Pam replied. She held up a printed list. Senators, lobbyists, executives. The entire document was placed into sealed evidence. "What about Clooney?" the prosecutor asked. Pam paused. "He contacted me. He wanted to testify. Said he was done lying to himself." "And did he?" "Yes, in private, off record. He named names, and he confirmed the term Vault 7. Vault 7. It's what Greystone calls the offline archive. The keepsafe. It's where they store the worst of it." The judge interrupted. "Are you saying there's still a repository out there that hasn't been seized?" "I'm saying it's bigger than any server room. It could be spread across nations, but it exists. And Combs knows where." At that, Diddy slammed his palm against the table. The courtroom jumped. Marshals moved fast, restraining him. But it was too late. The outburst had said everything. "We move forward," the judge declared. Dan stepped in briefly. "Permission to present visual evidence captured from the 2023 Miami raid." Permission granted. A video began, blurry at first. A corridor, laughter, music. Then a sudden shift, a girl crying, a door slamming, footsteps running, and a figure unmistakably Diddy speaking to someone off-screen. Pam clenched her jaw. She didn't look away. The judge raised her hand and paused the playback. "We'll resume with expert authentication tomorrow," she said. "This session is adjourned." As people stood and shuffled, Dan leaned over to Pam. "Are you ready for what comes next?" She glanced at the red folder behind the protective glass case. "I've been ready for 15 years. The two of them walked out of the courtroom into a night that suddenly felt much colder than the one before. But the heat was only just beginning. The courtroom was no longer just a place of justice, it had become a battlefield of revelations. Pam Bondi, now a relentless force on the stand, had replaced Kash Patel as the storm's eye. Her crisp red folder had already set the tone for chaos, exposing a network of secrets that had remained buried for decades. And now, with the courtroom's eyes locked on her, the story was only beginning to unravel. Dan Bongino stood just behind her, a silent sentinel, while Judge Mallory presided over the growing inferno with a strained resolve. Diddy sat at the defense table, visibly shaken, but calculating the weight of every name revealed, pressing down on him like a verdict before the gavel. "Ms. Bondi," the prosecutor began, "you mentioned a systemic operation involving several federal agencies. Today we ask you to walk us through how that system functioned." Pam stepped down from the stand and approached a monitor at the front of the room. With a single click, a complex interface appeared. A branching diagram bloomed across the screen, names, arrows, and files linked in a web of secrecy. "This," she said, pointing to the center node, "is known as the Black Room. It is the nucleus of suppression." The room fell silent. Established unofficially after Epstein's death, she continued, the Black Room operated outside of agency oversight. It coordinated between rogue actors within the FBI, CIA, and private federal contractors. No one owns it, but everyone used it. The screen shifted, revealing team rosters. "Here's the 2019 raid team on Little St. James Island," she said. "Note these two agents. They also appear in the 2023 seizure of properties tied to Sean Combs. Different operation, different warrant, different state. Same individuals." Gasps echoed in the courtroom. "These two agents never filed official reports," Pam said. "One resigned, the other disappeared, vanished completely." She tapped the monitor again. A drone-captured image flickered to life, a server room with stripped wiring, empty racks. This was taken 10 minutes after federal agents cleared Diddy's Miami compound. So where did the data go? She tapped again. Logs appeared, time-stamped server access points. A mirror backup was done remotely. The Black Room took everything. They've had it ever since. A few seats behind her, Diddy's attorney rose. "Your Honor, this is speculative. Sit down," Judge Mallory snapped. "She has documentation." The prosecutor stepped forward, holding a sealed envelope. "Ms. Bondi, this subpoena just returned. Can you confirm the authenticity of this transfer order?" Pam opened the envelope, her eyes narrowing. She held the paper high. "This is a transfer order for seized materials from Diddy's 2023 raid, dated 6 days after the warrant was executed. Signed by," she paused, "Senator Lindsey Graham." An eruption of shock blasted through the courtroom. "This," she said, voice hardening, "proves congressional obstruction." But she wasn't done. She turned back to the monitor and pulled up another screen. This time, guest logs. "Let's talk about the guests," she said. Names began to scroll. "Redacted here, but I'll read them. Members of Congress, CEOs, Hollywood executives, 1 Supreme Court clerk, 2 national news anchors, and 3 foreign diplomats, all logged via biometric entry into properties tied to either Epstein or Sean Combs." She tapped again. "And now what we found in Diddy's digital backups." A series of photos, censored but unmistakable, flooded the screen. One caught the courtroom's breath, a sitting senator arm, slung around 2 visibly underage individuals. 3 seconds, Pam said. That's how long the photo stayed up before they tried to scrub it. Judge Mallory demanded the image be removed. "This is what they buried," Pam said. "What they thought the American public would never see." Suddenly the courtroom lights flickered, then blacked out. For 2 full seconds silence ruled. Then came the sirens. Dan Bongino was already moving. "That's no power surge," he muttered. "That's a message." Security surged forward, forming a wall around the evidence. Judge Mallory raised a hand. "We continue. Nothing stops this court unless I'm on the ground." Applause surged. Then the bailiff approached the judge, whispering urgently. Her face turned pale. "We have confirmation," she announced. "One of the agents named earlier, Agent Royce Marks, was found dead this morning. Gunshot wound. No note." Pam exhaled, voice cracking slightly. "That's the 5th one." Judge Mallory nodded grimly. "Effective immediately, Ms. Bondi is under federal protection. This court enters a sealed session at dawn. No media, no leaks." Protests erupted from the press, but the judge silenced them with a gavel strike. Dan leaned to Pam. "We're poking a dragon." "I brought a bigger stick," she replied. Outside the courthouse had become a fortress. Protesters had shifted from chants of justice for victims to a singular word cover-up. In the emergency sealed session, the next witness was brought forward. Senator Tom Tillis. He limped to the stand, removing his glasses. His voice was dry but clear. "I won't walk out of here alive, I know that. But I'm not taking these secrets to the grave." The courtroom stilled. "I helped build the system," Tillis admitted. "Not alone. Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, others. We didn't just attend the events, we funded them, we coordinated, and we kept records." He held up a USB stick. "This is my insurance. Every guest list, every dollar." Judge Mallory was about to recess the court when the lights exploded again. A smoke canister rolled into the room. But no explosion followed. Instead, a voice, distorted, broadcast. "You were warned. This trial ends here. The names stay buried. Or more bodies will be." Judge Mallory grabbed her mic. "We are not afraid." As the smoke cleared, another figure stepped through the side door. Senator Lindsey Graham, his suit soaked in rain, no entourage, no lawyer. "I want to testify," he said, "before they make me disappear too." The courtroom gasped. Pam froze. "I should have stopped this," he began. "That drive Tillis holds, it's the full roster. Every name. Greystone's client list." "Are you on it?" Pam asked. He nodded. "Half the people in power are." The judge motioned for security to surround him. "I'll testify, fully. Protect me, and I'll give you the rest." Dan whispered to Pam. "We just cracked the Senate." "No," she said. "We've just entered the war." Suddenly the screen behind her flickered back to life. A Greystone facility in Virginia was on fire. "Burning the evidence," Dan muttered. Judge Mallory turned to the courtroom. "I want DHS, FBI, marshals, everyone here by sundown. This is no longer a trial. This is exposure." Pam opened the red folder one final time. "Unseal this." It was a ledger, transfers, shell companies, NGO fronts, bribes, blackmail, all tracing back to one beneficiary. Final recipient, she read. Sean Combs. Diddy lifted his head. "You think this ends with me?" Pam leaned in. "No, it ends with the truth." Night smothered Washington, but inside the courthouse the lights never dimmed. Judge Mallory had ordered a full lockdown. Armed federal agents now guarded every hallway. No one entered, no one left. Pam Bondi stood beneath a stark overhead light in the sealed evidence chamber, staring at a high-security case. Inside the red folder, untouched, glowing like a curse, the ledger, the USB from Tillis, the burned remnants from Diddy's backup server, and Graham's confession. Dan Bongino sat at a desk littered with forensic reports and decrypted data maps. On the screen in front of him, an offshore bank login blinked. "The final account just activated," Dan said. "Zurich node, triggered 2 days ago." Pam looked up. "Whose name is on it?" Dan hesitated, then turned the screen. Pamela R. Mallory. For a moment the world froze. Pam didn't speak. Dan stood. You want to confront her, or let it come to us? Pam squared her shoulders. Bring her in. No cameras, just the truth. They didn't need to summon her. Judge Mallory entered on her own. Her gavel was gone. Pam stepped forward. There was a $6.8 million wire disguised as a climate fund endowment, moved through 3 shells, from Greystone to your account. Mallory didn't flinch. I took it to stop them, to buy time, to survive. Pam raised a hand. You could have burned it down. Instead, you protected them. Mallory sighed. You don't understand what Greystone is. Then explain. The judge sat. She looked old now, small. Greystone was never about blackmail, she said. It was about equilibrium, control, chaos balanced by secrets. It started during the Cold War. Then the private contracts came, then the digital age, then Epstein. Pam leaned closer. You still let children suffer. I couldn't stop it, but I could delay the worst of it. I fed them misinformation, bogus leads, wasted stings. I tried. You failed. Mallory looked Pam dead in the eyes. Then do better. Silence. Then she stood. Take me in. I won't fight. Agents moved in. Mallory didn't resist, but as she passed Pam, she whispered, Vault 7 isn't a file. It's a location. Pam turned. Where? Mallory gave a faint smile. Where secrets go to sleep. Across town, the streets boiled with protests. The term, the room, never closes, trended worldwide. Anonymous accounts dumped partial documents, names, photos, private jet logs, but the storm hadn't peaked. At 3:13 a.m., the Department of Justice issued arrest warrants for 5 Greystone executives, Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, and 2 heads of intelligence agencies. Pam sat before a tribunal at sunrise. 3 independent senators now led the oversight panel, Kessler, Montero, Hawthorne. Their verdict was swift. Greystone is to be dissolved by executive order. Every asset was frozen, every agent recalled. Pam raised a hand, and Diddy, Dan, entered the chamber, face grim. He never made it to Colorado. Transport compromised. Guards missing. The footage was wiped. Pam turned pale. Where is he? Dan handed her a still image, grainy time-stamped. Moldova, old Soviet comms site. We think it's Vault 7. Pam stared. Then he has the rest of the ledger. Dan nodded. He's not running, he's regrouping. Pam whispered, then we're not done. Somewhere underground, Diddy sat before a terminal. A voice filled the room. Cold, female. Input passphrase. He leaned forward. Keep safe. Delta 7 Nova. Code accepted. A woman stepped into the shadows. Black suit. Augmented lenses. Decrypt the ledger backup, or we hand you over. Diddy smirked. You think the public would do worse than you? She leaned close. They believe in justice. We believe in permanence. He began typing. Back in D.C., Pam sat with Dan. A new folder before them. Black, embossed in silver. Project Cassandra. Pam opened it. Her face fell. This isn't over. Greystone was just the shell. This is the engine. Dan frowned. Who runs Cassandra? Pam stared at the first name. Someone we thought was on our side. The federal courthouse, once a sanctuary of routine justice, had transformed into a sealed citadel. Floodlights cut through the fog, and armed guards patrolled every hallway. Inside the sealed courtroom held only the bravest. The reporters were gone, so were the cameras. What remained were those too entrenched, too exposed, or too committed to step back. Pam Bondi stood at the center of it all. The red folder rested on the evidence table beside a sealed USB drive and a printed transcript of the Greystone ledger. Every page told a different story, some of power, others of coercion. All of the complications. Her fingers hovered above the final document as Judge Mallory looked on, flanked by emergency-appointed oversight senators. "Let's begin," the judge ordered. Dan Bongino entered first, stepping through the reinforced doors with a new folder in hand. "Status update," he said, voice grave. Greystone's Zurich hub was breached. Their comm system has gone dark. The CIA task force in Geneva confirmed no survivors. One secure node remains, Dubai. Pam nodded. "Then we move now." She turned to the screen. With a click, a new set of logs appeared, wire transfers connected to a string of shell companies. The amounts weren't in thousands or millions, they were in billions. Each routed through digital paths that led to media firms, nonprofits, and even state-backed art foundations. "Follow the art," Pam muttered. The room stirred. "This ledger," she said, holding it up, "isn't just evidence of a slush fund. It's a catalog of hush payments, blackmail acquisitions, and victim settlements disguised as charity donations." Judge Mallory leaned in. "To whom?" "To everyone who could speak," Pam said, "and everyone who could be silenced." The prosecutor presented a chart, a flow map of payments, leading directly to PAC's lobbying firms and undisclosed campaign super donors. The money moved in circles, but the circle had a nucleus. "Final beneficiary." Pam read aloud Sean Combs. Dan added, "The Keep Safe Vault 7 wasn't just storage. It was a command center. Every blackmail file, every dossier, every pressure point cataloged and updated." The judge stood. "And what happened to it?" Pam turned grim. "It was partially recovered, but the original is still out there. Diddy had a backup. We think he activated it 2 days before the raid." "Where is he?" one senator asked. Silence, then the side door creaked. A U.S. Marshal stepped in, whispering in Dan's ear. His face went pale. He turned to the court. "The transport team en route to Supermax lost sight. 2 guards are missing. The vehicle was hijacked. GPS scrambled." Judge Mallory slammed the gavel. "You mean he escaped?" "He was extracted," Dan corrected. "This wasn't a jailbreak, it was an operation." Pam's jaw clenched. "We were too late." The court erupted in disbelief. Some shouted, others wept, but Pam remained still. Then calmly she opened the red folder again. "We may have lost him," she said, "but we still have the names." She pulled out a sealed envelope and handed it to the prosecutor. Inside 10 names from the KeepSafe backup. Politicians, executives, a tech mogul, and one very familiar name. "Pamela R. Mallory," the prosecutor read. The courtroom froze. The judge's hand hovered over her gavel. Her face was drained of all colors. Dan moved fast, placing himself between her and the bench. "We need to verify." Pam spoke softly. "It matches. A wire transfer to Combs Shell Company, labeled as a judicial endowment, funneled through 2 art foundations and an education nonprofit." Judge Mallory looked down. "I thought it was a scholarship fund." "It wasn't," Pam replied. "It was a bribe." The judge exhaled, then nodded. "I won't run," she said. "Take me into custody." The courtroom fell silent. No cheers, no condemnation, only the sound of truths breaking. As marshals escorted Judge Mallory away, Pam stepped back to the center. "With the court's permission, I'd like to call the next witness." The doors opened. George Clooney walked in. This time not as a symbol, but as a whistleblower. "I've remembered more," he said, "and I'm done staying quiet." He was sworn in again. His eyes were tired but clear. "Vault 7 is a misnomer," he began. "It wasn't a single vault. It was a series of caches, locations around the world where data could be hidden but accessed remotely. One of them was mine." Gasps filled the room. "They used my properties," Clooney continued. "I thought it was for parties. They told me it was PR. I didn't ask. And when I did..." He pulled out a flash drive. "They sent me this, a warning. It showed a video from 2003. I was drunk. She was 17. I didn't know, but they knew, and they held it." Pam took the drive. This is your testimony under oath. Yes, I don't care anymore. If I burn, I burn. But if this helps tear Greystone apart, it's worth it. Dan stepped forward. There's chatter on dark nets. Someone is hunting the drive fragments. We think a third party outside U.S. intelligence wants Vault 7 too. Who? Pam asked. We don't know yet, but they're fast. One of our safe houses was hit this morning. Just then, the emergency lights blinked. A code red lockdown triggered across the court network. The prosecutor gasped. Server room breach. We're being tapped. Pam moved instantly. Scramble the backups, encrypt everything. Move the red folder to offsite storage. Dan radioed the team. Operation Ghost Umbrella, now. As the room moved into chaos, Pam turned back to the judge's seat, now empty. We've exposed the ledger. We know the players. But this isn't over. Vault 7 still exists, and whoever has it has leverage over half the planet. Then the lights went completely black. A single screen turned on. A face, masked, voice distorted. You think exposing names will stop the machine? The machine doesn't care. It has backups. Pam stared at the screen. We're not trying to stop the machine, she said. We're going to dismantle it. The feed cut. Outside helicopters circled. Inside silence returned. But the storm had only begun. 3 days had passed since the breach at the courthouse. Washington was on edge. National Guard units patrolled the Capitol's perimeter. Media blackouts persisted across all major networks. Inside a secured underground facility in Quantico, the last phase of the operation was unfolding. Pam Bondi, now operating under the codename Athena, stood before a team of cyber forensics agents. On the monitor, a decrypted fragment from Vault 7. This is the map, she said, the real one. Not just who they paid, but what they planned. The screen displayed code names: Operation Black Sun, Harvest Protocol, Titanium Witness. Dan Bongino stood by her side, visibly exhausted. Every major scandal of the last 20 years, they didn't just react to them, they engineered them. One agent raised a hand. Ma'am, the last active node just came online. Location Reykjavik, Iceland. Pam didn't hesitate. Prep a team. I'm going. Back in D.C., a Senate emergency session was underway. Lindsey Graham had delivered his full testimony. Names, dates, fund flows. It was devastating. But not everyone was ready to fall. In a darkened penthouse, a man known only as the broker activated a relay. His clients were losing assets, but not power. Make the call, he said. Activate fallback. At that moment, a warning flashed in Quantico. Incoming cyberstrike detected. Source unknown. They're trying to wipe it all, a tech shouted. Isolate the drive, Pam barked. Get the Iceland node before it goes dark. Dan placed a call. Ghost Umbrella teams are en route. Then came a surprise. George Clooney entered the facility unannounced, in his hand a satellite phone. It rang this morning, he said. The voice said they had a copy. Of what? Everything. They want to trade. Pam looked at Dan. Set a meeting. Hours later, in a decommissioned NATO bunker in Belgium, Pam met the contact, a woman, masked. Identified only as Echo. You want to end this, Echo asked. Then stop looking for the last backup, because it's not a file, it's a person. Pam's breath caught. Who? Echo handed her a sealed envelope, inside a photo, a child. They didn't just hide the data, Echo whispered. They raised it. I trained for it. Every memory, every password, every secret, encoded into one mind. Pam stared at the image. Where is this child now? Echo replied. You already know. The room went still. Dan checked his phone, a GPS ping. Iceland. It matched. The final leg had begun. Pam, Dan, and Clooney boarded a stealth flight. Upon landing, they found a remote orphanage run under the name St. Lucian Foundation. The child, barely 13, was waiting. You're late, he said. Dan knelt. What's your name? I don't have one, the boy replied. But they called me Archive. Pam looked into his eyes, a swirling intensity far beyond his years. "We need your help," he nodded. "But they'll come for me." Pam replied, "Let them. We're ready." Behind them a sound. Helicopters. The broker had arrived. Missiles tore through the compound perimeter. Clooney shielded the boy. Dan fired back. Pam secured the drive port linked to the boy's biometrics. Data flooded in. Every blackmail file, every deal, every hidden war. With a scream, the archive collapsed, but not before whispering, "Tell the world." Pam uploaded the file. A final prompt appeared, "Release all YN." She hit Y. Every screen in the world lit up. CNN, BBC, Al Jazeera, Fox, social media, public squares, all at once. Truth. Governments fell. CEOs resigned. Warrants were issued. Victims spoke. The machine didn't stop, but it bled, and for the first time in decades the world breathed. Dan placed a hand on Pam's shoulder. "You did it." Pam looked out over the snowy cliffs of Iceland. "No," she said. "He did." Behind them archives stirred, eyes open and aware.